Now we're going to talk about how one can take pictures of the nighttime sky, the daytime sky, using a telescope. And we're here with Alan Holmes, the president of SBIG and one of the founders. Alan, for somebody who is looking at getting into the astronomy, astrophotography field, what's the best word of advice you can give them?
I think the first thing they need to realize is you don't need to spend a lot of money, put down thousands of dollars on equipment. One can start out in a fairly modest way and get incredibly good results.
And what would you say would be a good first target for somebody with their first outing to take a picture, Alan?
Well, most people would start out with this object, the Orion Nebula, because everybody knows where it is, and it's probably the brightest object in the sky. But it's pretty much by itself, and that would be the first target. And then they would move on to some of these dimmer objects that are shown behind us.
Is there any absolute quest that people are out there trying to get the holy grail of astrophotography, to get something that nobody else has ever gotten, and using one of your advanced cameras?
Well, they are. In a lot of ways, the average amateur right now with a 16-inch telescope and one of our cameras can do anything that the Mount Palomar 200-inch could have done in 1970.
Now that's amazing.
So that's a kind of a backyard telescope has now gotten pretty powerful. A lot of the images that are being produced these days are actually superior to anything that was ever done by the professionals, even as little as 10 years ago.
From the floor of NEAF in Suffern, New York, we'll toss it off to Katie Moore at the U.S. National Air and Space Museum to talk about the June night sky update.
When Greg Redfern spoke to Terry Mann, the president of the Astronomical League, she recommended that beginners start observing with a nice pair of binoculars before diving into big telescope purchases. Binoculars are great to use to learn your way around the sky. They're also a nice way for seasoned amateur astronomers to take a step back and see familiar targets from a different perspective. I'll introduce you to some nice binocular objects visible in June, but first let's talk about how to locate them. By the time darkness falls in June, the constellation Hercules will be high overhead. The story of Hercules is familiar from mythology. He was a notable hero who performed many brave acts. You will see 4 stars making up the keystone. These stars are not particularly bright. They're all around 3rd or 4th magnitude, and this means that they might not be visible in urban areas at all. They'll be barely visible in the suburbs, but easy to see in rural areas. The keystone shape will stand out, marking the body of Hercules, and it will point you to a spectacular star cluster. Aim your binoculars between the 2 stars marking the westernmost side of the keystone, and you will see a field of stars, but one will appear larger and out of focus. That's because it's not a star. It's Messier Object 13, a globular star cluster. Hundreds of thousands of stars orbiting around their common center of mass. Look for the patch of light to brighten toward its core. You can compare N13 to another globular cluster in Hercules, N92, which is north of the keystone. As Saturn steps slowly away from the star Regulus this month, keep an eye on the red planet. Mars is making its way toward a close approach with Regulus. They will be less than 1 degree apart at the end of June, when Saturn will be about 5 degrees away from Regulus. Now, here's a short list of star parties open to the public for the month of July. Now back to Greg Redfern and Greg Piepol at the Northeast Astronomy Forum in Suffern, New York.
I'm here with Scott Roberts of the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. Scott, what's the latest outreach efforts of the ASP?
Well, as you know, the ASP is over 100-year-old organization, and we're devoted to outreach in astronomy. We do several programs. We involve amateur astronomers with professional astronomers. We get them into the classrooms. We have Project Astro, the Night Sky Network. We're involved with NASA. There's many, many programs involved with teaching people astronomy, doing professional teacher development in astronomy, and improving science literacy for kids and families.
An outstanding effort. Thank you very much, Scott.
We're here at Sky and Telescope Magazine with Dr. Rick Feinberg, Editor-in-Chief of Sky and Telescope Magazine. Rick, thanks for taking the time. What would you say Sky and Telescope Magazine offers to the beginner in astronomy?
Well, we like to think that we cover all of astronomy from beginner to advanced. For the beginner, we try to write with exceptional clarity and use very, very nice graphics that show the sky the way it really looks.
And then when you get to the other end of the spectrum, as far as amateurs go, what does Sky and Telescope offer the more advanced or the person that's been in the hobby for a while?
We cover topics like astrophotography with detailed instructions for image processing and the use of high-tech equipment like special filters, CCD cameras, things like that. So I think that even the most advanced amateurs can still learn something new from our articles.
And what would you say is the overall mission of Sky and Telescope Magazine?
We're all about bringing the joys of astronomy to everybody. So we cover the hobby and we cover the science, and we try to cover it at a level such that anyone from having a touch of interest to being a lifelong hobbyist will want to read it every month.
Now, you've been here a couple days. What do you think NEAF offers to people? What is it that you see as you're walking around the floor here the last couple days?
Well, NEAF really is two shows in one. There's a fantastic lecture series with some of the world's top astronomers giving talks, both amateurs and professionals. And then we have this phenomenal exhibit hall with something like 120 vendors this year, the most ever. NEAF has basically become astronomy's equivalent of the Consumer Electronics Show.
Okay. Well, there you have it, right here at Sky and Telescope Magazine at Northeast Astronomy Forum. And now to answer more of your questions, we're going to switch to Dr. Harold Geller at George Mason University Herschel Observatory in Fairfax, Virginia.
Thanks, Greg, and welcome once again to the George Mason University Herschel Observatory here in Fairfax, Virginia. I'm going to address your astronomy questions that we receive here at astrocast.tv. Alexander asked, when you show a picture of the CMB, that's cosmic microwave background radiation, it looks like a colored football. Where are we in relation to this image? Is it like we're looking at a planisphere and we're in the center looking at the horizon as the edges around us? Well, Alexander, the simplest answer is that you are looking at a modified galactic coordinate projection map of data. The center of this type of map represents the center of the Milky Way galaxy. This type of map projection is not the same as a planisphere. It uses the local horizon coordinate system. Thanks for your question, Alex. Now from Richard we hear, I'm new at this hobby. Do I need a compass to point the telescope to north? To find the home position? The telescope is a Meade ETX 60AT BB with AutoStar tracking. Well, Richard, every telescope and its tracker has its own set of instructions specific to that telescope. We do not have an ETX model here at GMU's Herschel Observatory. However, my colleague at Astrocast.tv, Greg Piepol, has experience with the ETX line of telescopes. He informs me that you should only have to roughly point the scope in the northern direction to align the ETX 60. It just wants to know which direction north is so it can find the first alignment star. Center that alignment star, then it'll have you go on to the second star, center that second star, and you're done. Remember, if you're facing the west, you can stick out your right hand, and that will be pointing north. Thanks for your question, Richard. And if you have an astronomy question, contact us here at astrocast.tv, and we'll do our best to get you the answers. Now back to Greg Redfern and Greg Piepol at the Northeast Astronomy Forum in Suffern, New York.
Thank you, Harold, for those question and answers. We actually have somebody who'd like to ask us a question here on the floor.
I think he's a little camera shy, Greg.
I think you're right. So how would you surmise NEAF 2008?
Nothing short of outstanding. Not only do we have all this wonderful equipment, everyone enjoying it, we had the imaging conference that was held on Thursday and Friday, as well as the NEAF Solar Star Party with everyone looking at the sun.
And we had some great speakers, too, including women astronauts that brought home the fact that women are an integral part of astronomy and their numbers are increasing. So as we finish up here at NEAF 2008, on behalf of Greg Piepol and me, Greg Redfern, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Astrocast.tv.
Thanks for watching Astrocast. For more information on astronomy and our solar system, come visit us at astrocast.tv.